Shunsui Kyōraku. Shunsui Sakuranasuke Jiro Kyōraku, Kyōraku no Jiro Sakuranasuke Shunsui, is the captain of the 1st Division and captain commander of the Godai 13. His lieutenants are his niece, Nanao Ise, and Genshiro Okikiba. He is the former captain of the 8th Division. Shunsui is the second son of the high-ranking noble Kyōraku family. While Shunsui was still a young boy, his older brother married the head of the Ise clan who would eventually become Nanao Ise's mother. Though Shunsui and his brother did not really get along, living with his brother became more comfortable, and Shunsui would visit him often. At one point, Shunsui found his brother receiving a hairpin from Nanao's mother and noted that he has mellowed out in his old age, only to be informed that this was the kindness of Nanao's mother at work after his brother died, during which he was entrusted with hairpins that formerly belonged to Nanao's mother. Shunsui was entrusted with the Zanpakuto of the Ise family by his brother's widow, and his Zanpakuto spirit created a second spirit to store it. Shunsui was assured by Nanao's mother that he would not suffer from carrying Shinken Hakioken and that he was the only one outside of her own family whom she could trust. Despite being of such old and prestigious lineage, he disliked studying and training, and preferred to chase the ladies, although being told by Captain Commander Yamamoto that he was able to see the truth and was wise for his age. Because of this, he was sent against his will to the Shino Ryujutsu Academy, Shinigami Academy. At some point in Shunsui's academy days, Shunsui trespassed into Yamamoto's room. After being chastised by Yamamoto, he asked about the painting in his room, and Yamamoto replies that it was a monster that caused strife when it was around. While there, he came to know Jushiro Yukitake, who would become his best friend and fellow captain. He, along with Jushiro Yukitake, was one of the first Shinigami to become a captain through the Shinigami Academy. Furthermore, he was personally trained by Yamamoto. He and Yukitake are the oldest captains among the Godai 13, with the exception of Retsu Unohana and Yamamoto himself. It was stated that the four of them have been captains of the Godai 13 for at least 100 years, as of 110 years before the current time. At some point during his academy days, Shunsui was informed by Yukitake that Nanao's mother had been executed for losing one of the cared treasures, which prompted him to admit that he preferred to learn of such things sooner rather than later. 110 years ago he had a unique relationship with his lieutenant Lisa Yadamaru. In contrast to his relationship with his current lieutenant Nanao Ise, Lisa was more outgoing and perverted in a way much like his own personality, but he found that his position required him to be the adult in the situation. He was also the first to casually mention, to a curious Lieutenant Sosuke Aizen, that the previous 12th Division captain was promoted to the Royal Guard. He was also present at the promotion ceremony of the newly appointed 12th Division Captain Kisuke Urahara. 9 years later, Shunsui was present at an emergency meeting called by Captain Commander Yamamoto. He decided to create an investigative team to locate the missing 9th Division squad members. When he gave out the orders, Yamamoto ordered Shunsui to guard the Siriidii. When Yamamoto decided to send both Kido Captain Tessai Tsukabashi and Kido Lieutenant Hachijin Ashoda of the Kido Corps, Shunsui instead advised him to send only Hachi and replace Tessai with his own lieutenant, Lisa. He tried to cheer up a shaken Kisuke Urahara, telling him not to worry about his lieutenant, Kaori Saragaki, who was sent to help the 9th Division, because she was strong, though not as strong as Lisa. During his time on guard, he met up with some squad members that were also on guard and congratulated them for keeping watch on the Siriidii. He also noticed Lieutenant Sosuke Aizen taking a night walk, muttering to himself that he was maybe overthinking things before leaving. Later in his barracks he was addressed by a very young Nanao Ise, who had come to see his lieutenant, Lisa Yadamaru. Shunsui then remembered that Nanao always came to him around the 1st of every month to have Lisa read to her. Nanao confirmed this, only to be told that Lisa was away on a mission, but would be back soon. Soon afterward, Shunsui changed his attire by removing his hairpins and switching his kimono. He was present to greet newly inducted members of the 8th Division, whom he informed that he was cordial toward young ladies and indifferent toward men. Some time after the holofication incident, Shunsui was present when Isshin Shiba made his report concerning the mysterious hollow he fought, along with the string of events caused by the creature in Naruki City. He laughed at Mayuri's irritation that the 10th Division captain hadn't at least brought back the hollow's body for him to study. Appearance: Shunsui Kyōraku is a tall, light-skinned Shinigami with high cheekbones, gray eyes, and long wavy brown hair. His hair is tied in a long ponytail and has long bangs that frame the left side of his face. He also has a noticeable amount of body hair on his chest, feet, and arms. He wears a Tsujigasa straw hat and a pink, flowered lady's kimono, which he drapes across his shoulders and over his captain's uniform. Although his Haori and Obi sash are cheap, his pinwheel hairpins are very expensive. He does not wear tabi with his sandals. He has thin facial hair around his mouth and on his cheeks. Over 100 years before Sosuke Aizen's defection, Shunsui only had facial hair on his upper mouth. After the battle with the wand and rake, Shunsui wears an eye patch over his right eye that was damaged during the conflict. The top half of his right ear is sliced off at a slight tilt with a scar along his right temple. As a child, Shunsui had shorter and messier hair. He wore a flower-patterned kimono. Personality. Shunsui is a laid-back and flamboyant man, evident in his style of dress and general attitude, and is usually smiling. In his off time, he often drinks sake in bars and naps. He likes steamed buns that go with sake, but dislikes powdered green tea. Other times, he likes to chase after women, particularly his lieutenant, Nanao Ise, whom he calls, my Nanao-chan, Lil, Nanao in the English dub, and his former lieutenant, Lisa Yadamaru. Shunsui tends to use a more casual speech style than many other captains. He generally refers to his fellow captains and Shinigami by their first name followed by an honorific. He wrote a romance novel titled Rose-Colored Path, which runs in Seriidii communication, but is very unpopular. Shunsui does not receive a single fan letter or gift for his birthday from his readers, but he is not bothered by this at all. Shunsui is a peace-loving man who will always try to talk his way out of battles, though he does not wish to insult opponents by refusing to fight. He has a great distaste for fighting, telling Love Akawa that, it doesn't matter whether you owe someone or they owe you, as soon as you start fighting, you are in the wrong either way. The slightly eccentric Shunsui also seems to like making an impression on opponents. Though Shunsui tries to talk his way out of a fight, he will fight when the situation demands it, such as in his battle with Coyote Stark. When Stark asked that they only pretend to fight, he declined the offer, though noted that he prefers to do the same. Shunsui maintains a level of honor and integrity when engaging in battle. He refuses to fight with children or even in the presence of a child. He also dislikes taking the life of innocent people, as he left Chad alive when Nanao offered to kill him. He always maintains a veil of respect for his opponent, is polite in combat situations and prefers to fight one-on-one. When fighting powerful opponents, like Stark or Aizen, Shunsui rarely loses his cool, going as far as to make small talk and joke around with his opponents. Despite being one of the strongest and oldest captains, Shunsui retains a level of humility and is not overly arrogant about his strength, acknowledging that Toshiro Hitsugaya has the potential to become stronger than himself given enough time. However, Shunsui also harbors a deep sense of guilt over the misfortune that has afflicted those close to him, such as the death of his brother and the execution of Nanao's mother, and considers it a burden too heavy for him to carry alone. Powers and abilities. Master Swordsman. While hating the concept of having to engage in a fight, Shunsui is one of the most proficient swordsmen in all of Soul Society. He is a highly adaptable combatant, as his two swords have allowed him to become ambidextrous, letting him switch them between his hands. Kyōraku usually swings with more strength in his left hand than his right, however, he can easily switch or balance the strength between his two hands, allowing him to surprise his opponent. Kyōraku states that he only uses his wakizashi in situations where his katana is too difficult to use. He claims that he does not use them together on a regular basis. The best example of Shuansui's prowess is his ability to fight on even grounds with an unreleased Stark, the first Espada, with only his sealed Zanpakuto, while other captain-level Shinigami have required at least their Shurkai to fight against an Espada. Shuansui's fighting style involves evasion and attacking an opponent either in the front or back, using the element of surprise to overwhelm them. His two swords move at a different pace, something he takes advantage of while fighting. While the enemy is at the mercy of his wakizashi's speed, his tachi swoops in for the final blow, which is the most common use of swords like his. Hakuta combatant. While rarely observed performing hand-to-hand combat, instead preferring to rely upon his skills in other areas, Shunsui has at least some proficiency in this area, which he briefly displayed during his confrontation with Yasutora Sato. Tsukiyubi, thrust fingers, a technique where the user simply extends the index and middle fingers of one hand in unison while they are in contact with an opponent. This gesture possesses enough physical force to effortlessly send someone of even Chad stature flying several meters away. Shuanpa Master. As a captain, Shunsui is exceptional in the art of Shuanpa. During his battle against Yamamoto, he notably makes a massive leap in Shuanpa to remove Nanao from the battlefield and return almost instantly, a feat commended even by Yamamoto prior to battle. Shuansui's skill is high enough for him to effortlessly dodge Stark's attacks without using his hat or kimono. Kido expert. Shunsui possesses great skill in Kido, having used Heido number 78. Zangerin to considerable effect without reciting its incantation during his battle against Leal. Master strategist and tactician, despite his laid-back attitude, Shunsui has repeatedly shown himself to be a perceptive and insightful man. According to Yamamoto, even when he was younger, Shunsui has always had an eye for seeing the true character of anyone he meets. Shunsui easily saw through Kuratsuchi's attempt to hide being used by the bounce. He was also one of the few people to suspect that Aizen was hiding something. In battle, Shunsui has proven to be very adept at noticing and understanding details in an opponent's skills or attack patterns. During his battle against Chad, he quickly determined the basics behind Chad's Ryuryoku blasts, warning him about those kinds of techniques, and even explaining that his energy blasts would eventually use up his life energy. Shunsui has also proven himself very persuasive. Shortly after becoming Captain Commander, he was able to convince Central 46 to agree to all his new requests. Immense spiritual power. As one of the oldest and strongest captains in the Godai 13, Kyōraku has tremendous spiritual power. He, alongside his best friend Jushiro Yukitake, are said to possess Ryatsu unmatched by their peers or predecessors. He is not overwhelmed by the Ryatsu of Captain Commander Yamamoto, though most people would be in such a situation. His power is further displayed in his ability to defeat Coyote Stark's released form with only his Shirkai. His might was also later recognized by being promoted to the status of Captain Commander. Enhanced strength. Shunsui possesses relatively high physical strength, calmly deflecting one of Sato's Ryuryoku blasts with a single hand. Offensively, his blows are very powerful, demonstrated when he cracked a barrier, which Aizen had erected, with just a single attack from his Shirkai. Enhanced endurance. Shunsui possesses considerable stamina and endurance, remaining able to move around and fight as he usually does even after being shot multiple times by Leal Barrow's Quincy, Volstandig. Enhanced durability. Shunsui has proven that he is very durable, even by Shinigami standards. He was able to endure the attacks of Captain Commander Yamamoto, whose Zanpakuto is the most devastating in all of Soul Society in terms of destructive power. He was also able to withstand a Zero at point-blank range from Stark in his released form without any noticeable injuries. Zanpakuto. Kaiten Kayakatsu, Bones of Heavenly Blooming Madness, viz., Flower Heaven Bone of Madness. His Zanpakuto is unique in that it exists as a Daisho sword pair, consisting of a tachi and a wakizashi. Their cross guards are rectangles, with the corners cut off, decorated by a pattern of cherry petals and lines, and each sports a dark blue handle. He usually keeps them sheathed through his waist tie at his left side. However, during battle, the swords have been placed on both sides of his sash. Like other Zanpakuto, Kaiten Kayakatsu has a personality of her own. However, unlike other Zanpakuto, this personality shines through in battle and prevents Shunsui from fighting at full power until Kaiten Kayakatsu is in the mood for it. Because of this, Shunsui does not like to play with her Shirkai. Its Shirkai command is, the flowery winds become disturbed, the god of flowers sings, the heavenly winds become disturbed, the devil of heaven sneers. Hana Kaze Midorite, Kashi Naki, Tenpu Midorite, Tenma Warao, viz., when the flower wind rages, the flower god roars, when the wind of heaven rages, the god of the underworld sneers. Kyōraku sets the two blades against each other in a cross, and then pulls after uttering the poem-like command. When the flash clears, Kaiten Kayakatsu has become a pair of huge, black, heavily curved Chinese scimitars with silver edges. The hilt and tsuba of each are still the same as they were in Kaiten Kayakatsu's sealed form, but they now sport long red tassels dangling from the end. Despite the two swords becoming identical in this state, Shunsui has stated they still work the same way. One, the wakizashi, is used mainly for speed strikes, and the other, the tachi, is used mainly for power strikes. Thusly, they still exist as a daisho sword pair, with the wakizashi being slightly smaller in size than the tachi. Shirkai special ability. The power of Kaiten Kayakatsu is to make children's games real. The Zanpakuto makes the rules, and anyone who steps within the boundaries of its spiritual pressure is forced to play by those rules, including Shunsui himself. According to Shunsui, you win, you live. You lose, you die. She's a fickle one, all right. Bushigoma, lazy spinning top. Shunsui rotates with both blades facing in opposite directions, creating large wind blades that fire toward an opponent from Kaiten Kayakatsu. The wind blades join together, forming a spinning circle of wind that, upon contact with a target, envelopes the target with tornado-like intensity. The attack is not only dangerous, but can disorient an opponent trapped within it. The technique is powerful enough to counteract high-powered Zero blasts. The game this technique represents is a spinning top game. Takaoni, Mountain Demon. This move was used in Shuansui's battle with Stark, but Stark's attack hid the nature of the technique. However, Shunsui later explains that in this game, whoever is higher up wins. Kajioni, Shadow Demon. The rule of this game is that whoever gets their shadow stepped on loses. The game itself allows competitors to manipulate shadows to their advantage. For example, Shunsui has demonstrated the ability to hide himself in shadows when using this technique, and he can also control the shadows, using them to attack an opponent by attacking the shadow they are currently standing upon. In addition, Shunsui can make multiple shadow clones of himself that can attack his opponent from multiple angles. Irony, Lustrous Demon. In this color-based game, you say the name of the color you want to cut with your sword, and you cannot cut anything else. If the color that you call does not exist on your body, the damage is minimal, even if the attack would normally inflict a much more severe wound. However, the opposite is also true. By calling out a color you're wearing and attacking, the damage given is proportional to the amount of that color on you. To maximize damage, you have to use a color that maximizes the risks to yourself as well as your enemy. For example, by wearing black robes and calling black, one would inflict massive damage on an enemy if struck, even if the actual blow itself was minor, but the caller could potentially be at risk of suffering major damage in return depending on how much of the enemy's skin or clothing is covered in black. Diruma-san ga Karanda, the Dharma doll fell down after Shunsui or his opponent is marked as being it. The other combatant travels toward them on a trail of Ryatsu left by their attack in order to catch them by surprise. However, if the combatant who is it sees their opponent while they are moving, that opponent loses and thus dies. The game this technique represents is Diruma-san ga Karanda, a children's game similar to Red Light Green Light. Kajiokuri, Shadow Sending. By staring hard enough at their shadow, Shunsui or his opponent can project an afterimage in a different location. The higher their opponent's Raikaku, the more realistic the afterimage appears to be. The game this technique represents is Chichen no Kajiokuri, where children stare at their shadow on the ground for several seconds before looking at another surface, allowing them to see an afterimage of their shadow. Bankai, Kaiden Kayakatsu, Karamatsu Shinju, Bones of Heavenly Blooming Madness, Withering Pine Lover's Suicide, viz., Flower-Crazed Heaven Bone Spirit Withered Pine Loves Suicide. While holding his Shurkai out in front of him with the blades pointing down, Shunsui activates his Bankai, causing black, root-like tendrils to spread out from him as his Zanpakuto spirit, Kaiden Kayakatsu, appears behind him. Shunsui considers this his last resort, and will only use it if his allies are far enough away from him so that they do not get caught in its effects. Bankai Special Ability. Upon release, an aura covers a large area around Shunsui. This aura changes others' perception of the surrounding environment, making them perceive it as darkened, bleak and gloomy, and causes others to feel varying levels of melancholy and despair. Ikadan, Tamaraikizu no Wakachiai, Act 1, Hesitance and Apportionment of Wounds. Any wounds that Shunsui or his opponent inflict on each other's body will emerge on their body as well, as if shared. Shunsui compares this to the story of a man who suffers from the same wounds as his partner, but cannot die from them. Nidenmi, Zenki no Shirtone, Act 2, the pillow of shame. Black spots appear all over the body of Shuansui's opponent, causing them to bleed profusely. Continuing his story, Shunsui likens this to the man feeling shame after wounding his partner, causing him to collapse in shame and become incurably ill. Sandan, Danjio no Fuchi, Act 3, the Severing Abyss. A massive amount of water engulfs both Shunsui and his opponent, who remain within it until one of them runs out of Ryatsu and drowns. Shunsui compares this to the two characters from his story, who both hurl themselves into gushing waters. Shime no Dan, Idokurabasami Kaizome no Nadabu, Final Act, thread-cutting scissors. Upon a blood-streaked throat. After sheathing his swords, Shunsui winds a white thread around his opponent's throat multiple times before pulling it taut, leaving a deep cut in their throat that expands before blowing up their head. Completing his story, he likens this to the regretful man's partner ignoring his pleas and mercilessly shearing his throat. Weaknesses. Zanpakuto. Moodiness. Kaiden Kayakatsu is moody and will not showcase her full power until in battle, and even then she must be in the mood to do so. Follow the rules. Shunsui is subject to the same rules as his opponent. Indiscriminate effects. Bankai. The effects of Kaiden Kayakatsu, Karamatsu Shinju are indiscriminate, such that Shunsui prefers not to use it if there are comrades within the range.
If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.